Hello, welcome back, my lovely lovelies, to the Moshe Davidovici show. Finally, the second episode that all of you have been waiting for, like thirsting people in a desert. So, there are more than there ought to be, definitely, but inarguably a good number of young men and women these days who, by any metric you could really judge them by, or at least that you would judge them by, looking straight at them, you'd think, well, there's no reason for this person to be depressed. You know, they live in a house, they have a family, friends somewhere, a few. I mean, increasingly many people don't have any friends, but acquaintances, at the very least. They go to a school that's not Passaic High School, most of them. So they shouldn't be very unhappy, but they are. Unhappiness, depression, even if you're not depressed, just a general sense of nihilism and meaninglessness is pretty common. Rather common among, maybe not the majority, it might be, I don't know, but rather common among young men and women. And this is really because, well, for a multitude of reasons. One of them being excessive social media use, like just excessive indulgence in pleasures in general. But that's really an effect of the fact that we live in a meaning vacuum. Now, what do I mean by a meaning vacuum? Vacuum is a scientific term that refers not to the thing that cleans your carpet, although the thing that cleans your carpet does this by creating a vacuum, which is why it's called a vacuum. A vacuum is just empty space, where there's nothing. Outer space is vacuum, with a few, hydrogen or whatever, carbon particles floating around in it, but pretty much just emptiness all around you. And so when I say meaning vacuum, I mean we live in a culture with no set-in-stone structure of meaning. People aren't, children, you must understand, are not brought up these days with any true structure of meaning by their parents and by society, because we are a product of the society we live in. So to an extent, we are brought up by society. But we are not brought up by parents, by society, by authority figures, by anyone with a true structure of values, sense of meaning. We live in a brave new world where just be anything. Be a triceratops. Be a princess. Be the CEO of a Fortune 500 company. I don't frickin' know. World champion ping pong player. Just do anything, be anything. Nobody can judge you for what you do. Nothing you do is wrong. Nothing you do is right. Figure everything out for yourself. So parents essentially leave all of the responsibility at the footsteps of their children to build their value system, their core beliefs. They leave it to children to build the very world that they live in. And children, even adolescents, even high school, are not equipped to build the world in which they live. The values are your values and your beliefs and your meaning, your sense of meaning, are the rock on which you stand in life. You can't just build that rock out your ass. You can't pull the bricks out your butthole and just start building like it's nobody's business. So you need people in your life. You need to really, really come up with a really ingrained sense of values and meaning. You need to start at an early age. And when you're 5 years old, are you going to start building your entire worldview on your own at 5? At 5, the only bricks you're gonna pull out your ass to build anything is Play-Doh bricks that you left in there for a week in order to get the extra special scent to make your tower extra cool so you can brag to the other 5-year-olds about how your tower smells of doo-doo. So, parents do take some of the responsibility for just their sheer inaction. But it's also just societal shift. As many societal shifts really trace their way back to the 60s. Let's be honest, the 60s were a very, very big cultural turning point. Most people these days see the 60s just like, the 50s, then the 60s, then the 70s, then the 80s, a decade. The 60s were very consequential in how they changed our culture. In the 50s, 30s, 40s, 50s, right up until the 60s, we had ingrained senses of values in our culture. Promiscuity was low. Religion was high. In the 60s, we got the sexual revolution. We had this revolution. We had that revolution. We got hippies. We got this. We got that. Bing, bang, boom. And now we're in our brave new world where do anything. It's just really the removal of just any constraints on sexual behavior that came with the sexual revolution, which is one of the most consequential revolutions in American history, possibly in just worldwide history, really, is that gender roles were pretty much annihilated. Because if everybody's just an interchangeable body, nobody really has any role specific to their gender besides, like, pairing up. I want to use more euphemistic phrase, with the other kind of body. And people these days, really, really like to bash on the idea of gender roles and sexism. Look, I'm more than willing to be accused of being sexist, because I am. Being sexist essentially means I believe there's a difference in how people should live their lives, and how you should treat people based on what sex they are. And I do believe that gender roles are a thing. People do have God-given roles that we were created with, because it says so in the Torah, and pretty much in every single other religion. Like, you can't believe in any religion without believing in gender roles, but that's besides the point. Not really, but we'll get to that. So we essentially live in a society without ingrained gender roles. And most people see this as a good thing. It's like, yeah, I can be a girl boss and I can be the CEO of Starbucks and make a new and invent a latte or whatever. That's the fields most women are going into. And then they complain about not making as much money as men in STEM, but that is besides the point. But gender roles are not as bad as all the people who rail on them would like to make them seem. There's a reason why people have had gender roles throughout almost the entirety of human history everywhere forever until 15 seconds ago. It's because, well, first of all, in a survival sense, they work. You're less likely to die adhering to gender roles in an ancient world where dying is a very present thing. It was very hard to stay alive 3,000 years ago. But also because it just makes sense. There's a sense of purpose that comes with fulfilling. Like, there's a reason why we became male and female. And it isn't just reproduction. It is reproduction, that's a big thing, but it isn't just reproduction. There's a reason why girls are more girly, and guys are more guy-y, naturally, innately, physically too, with testosterone and estrogen, muscle mass, size, things like that. There's a reason why all of these differentiations exist, because we were created to fulfill different purposes, and fulfilling the purpose specific to your sex or gender, they're interchangeable terms, it does give a sense of meaning to whoever does it. So that's strike one off of things that have just been ripped out of society that give people a sense of meaning. Like, you don't need to put anything into society that removes meaning to take away people's sense of meaning. You just need to remove the things that give them meaning. If you have nothing that gives you meaning, you will not have a sense of meaning. And so, the lack of meaning in society generally, the lack of meaning makes itself very apparent in people's behavior. First of all, as I mentioned in both parts of episode 1, promiscuity. As I also mentioned earlier, mentioning the sexual revolution. If you don't have any religious values, any gender role values, any values, period, no meaning, why not just huss around? What's to stop you? And if people don't have a sense of meaning, they'll often try and find a sense of meaning through being loved. And this is mostly pervasive among girls. Most guys who engage in promiscuity are trying to get just pleasure and status. Like, status among their peers, and just, it feels good, I've heard anyways. Never tried it and don't plan to, but I've heard. So, of course, but the girls don't really get as much of a rush from it. I imagine some of them like it, but it's not so much about the rush for them of just feeling it. But girls in general are much more likely than guys to confuse attention with love. So to confuse that, like, a guy's giving her attention, so he must love her, when really he loves her bust line and nothing else. So, and then they don't really find a meaning in being loved by engaging in promiscuity, because they never end up being loved in the first place. Because any guy who really does want a meaningful, loving relationship is going to be completely off-put by a promiscuous female. And so it's also apparent in other vectors of behavior. There's a lot of laziness in modern society, especially among young modern people. People just don't want to try, don't want to do anything, and just slide through life, just coast. And also, that brings back to the fundamental question. If there's no meaning, if there's no hardline set of values, why not? Why try? Why do anything? Why not just coast? Because if it doesn't really matter, if there's no meaning to not coasting, then there's no meaning to not coasting, so just coast. And even delinquency. The culture that we live in my opinion, breeds delinquency. Because, of course, you don't have a set of values, and then the adults say, you shouldn't do all these delinquent behaviors. Actually a good question to ask is, well, why not? If there's no set of values, if there's no ingrained set of morality, and just saying this is wrong isn't an ingrained set of morality, it really needs to be a cultural thing, like religious law or something like that, then why not do delinquent behaviors besides you could be punished? What reason besides fear could you have to not do this? And all of those really serve as evidence as well that we live in a meaning vacuum. If we really had heavily ingrained senses of meaning and values in society, there'd be a heck of a lot less promiscuity, less coasting, and less wanton delinquency. And the effect of a lack of meaning has serious effects on the people who lack meaning. The first is just sadness. People these days talk a lot, I'm sad for no reason. That's where a lot of clinical depression cases come from. Is people just say, I don't know why I'm sad. I just feel like meaningless in life and apathetic. And they're given pills. Because, of course, if you feel there's no meaning in life, here's a meaning pill. You see, an SSRI is called a selective serotonin reuptake inhibitor. It doesn't do anything with serotonin. You pop up this pill, and your life has meaning now. It's wild. People come in, and they're like, I'm depressed because I feel like I have no meaning. Oh my God. My life has meaning now. You can't take a pill, and then all of a sudden, your life has meaning. That's not how it works. And this often goes hand in hand with the depression thing. People also mention having a lack of motivation. Well, they don't mention it. Or they do. They complain like, I can't clean my room. That sweater on my floor that's been lying there for 3 damn weeks. I am physically incapable of lifting my arm and picking it up and putting it in a hamper. Besides, if I put it in the hamper, it wouldn't do anything, because I'm not doing the laundry for the next 3 months. So, who even cares? But generally, a lack of motivation goes hand in hand with despair, and it becomes almost a vicious cycle as well as a self-fulfilling prophecy, because if you have a lack of motivation, you're not going to get anything done. If you don't get anything done, then you don't really have anything that you're getting done. You have nothing going for you, which is going to make you unhappy, which is going to reduce your motivation, which means you're not getting anything done, which means you're unhappy, which means you have no motivation, which means you're not getting anything done. So it's a really vicious cycle and quite difficult to break out of. Another effect that having no ingrained sense of structure of meaning and values in society is that there's a lack of a real sense of morality and right and wrong among people. People will act like delinquents. People will hurt each other. People will be incredibly rude to each other. People will do anything to each other and not care. Because why should they? People do have somewhat of a sense of morality. It's like we don't live on the Lord of the Flies island, not yet. But the sense of morality that people have and their willingness to stick their neck out to stand up for it is significantly weaker than it would be if we still had our sense of values. And finally, there's just a general sense of purposelessness. When people talk, and this is one of the root cause people mention of feeling in despair, just I feel like there isn't a purpose to my life, to what I do. Of course, when you don't have a sense of meaning and values and things that give you purpose, then of course you're going to feel like your life is purposeless, because if nothing's giving your life purpose, it is purposeless. Like, saying somebody's life is purposeless, I know that sounds very harsh. Well, you think you should die, you evil monster. But I don't mean they should all just be exterminated. Please don't take this the wrong way. But if there's nothing in your life that gives you purpose, your life is purposeless by definition. Because logically, it doesn't follow for it to not be purposeless, because there's no purpose. There's nothing giving it purpose. I can't really be too harsh on people who grapple with a sense of purposelessness, apathy, just gliding through life. I dealt with this when I was younger. And I know I'm a freshman. I'm saying when I was younger. It's like, well, when I was 2? But like, when I was 11 or so, 10, 11, yeah, I think around 11, maybe nearly 12, it builds up slowly. And eventually I just felt like, I have no idea how this revelation just came into my 11-year-old head. It's like Ruach HaKodesh, divine inspiration, something, this incredible epiphany, well above the pay grade of my rather unintelligent 11-year-old mind. And I just realized, my life isn't going anywhere. I don't have a sense of purpose here. And every single day is just like, I go to school, I come home, and I entertain myself. And then I go to bed. And I just felt incredibly unfulfilled, just simply entertaining myself every day. And when I finally realized it, the moment it really came to me was when, this one time, I was just sitting in my bed in the middle of the day, like in the afternoon, I believe, and I pulled the blanket over my head. I forget why. And I was just sitting there thinking, and then all of a sudden I just started crying. I thought to myself, why the hell am I crying? I don't have any reason to be sad. And then the realization came to me. It's because I'm not doing anything to give myself a reason to not be sad. So, of course I was. Just thankfully I came to the realization that things weren't working as they were, just coming home and entertaining myself, nothing doing every day. I came to the realization much, much earlier than most do, and I brought myself out of the trap. What really saved me was exercise. I decided, you know what? I'm going to become strong. That's what I'm going to do. That's what I'm going to build. I'm going to build my body. Where we lived at the time, there was a park nearby with these push-up things, pull-up things. I did a hell of a lot of pull-ups. Chin-ups, really, but whatever. That's really helped to give me it wasn't just entertaining myself. It was uncomfortable, and I was just going through it. But I was becoming stronger, feeling more energetic, and I was building something, creating something, instead of just passing time waiting for something to change. Because if you just sit there and wait for things to change, they're never, ever going to change, and they will stay the same forever. So, I would really like to thank the pull-up bar at the park for bringing me out of the trap that I nearly fell into, of just wallowing in a sense of meaninglessness. And you too, if you're in here, and people you know, people in general, can do the same. It's entirely possible to build or rebuild a sense of meaning, a sense of values. I currently am still going through the process of building my sense of meaning. I do it through many things. Through wrestling, like I try to improve as a wrestler, through religion, through connecting with my family. These are all great things. First of all, like what I mentioned first, wrestling. It doesn't need to be wrestling, although it definitely can be. I can vouch for wrestling being a good option, but just dedicating yourself to the perfection of a craft, becoming better at something. You can find a sense of meaning, and that can be pottery, or lacrosse, or professional tag, banjo playing, Banjo's a pretty cool instrument, by the way. But just anything. Dedicating yourself to becoming as good as you can get at something. And just testing how good you can possibly become. It shows you what you're made of, and it gives you a sense of purpose and the ability to take pride in what you do every day. Instead, like, it gives you something you can say. When people ask you, what do? You can say something other than, my hobbies include TikTok, Instagram, and wallowing in self-pity. Also, you can reconnect with your family. People these days, I imagine part of the reason why so many people feel lonely is because they don't have enough of a social life with their families. When people think of social life, they always think of just friends, and look, your family doesn't count. For social life, they're your family. Why don't they count? They're your family, yeah. They're the people who know you best. They count more than friends, in my opinion. In order to build a sense of meaning, you can build your meaning around your family. And many people these days live very distantly from their family because their parents are on their phone all day, their siblings are on their phone all day, they're on their phone all day, they don't give a shit about each other, so they're not going to be spending that much time together really getting to know each other. They still do love each other, but there isn't enough closeness. And I mean, really, the first step you can take towards that is just go up to a family member and just be like, hug me. Just hug them. Most of the time, they're not going to just be like, ew, who are you? My sibling, my daughter, my son, whatever, to ask to hug me. Disgusting. Usually your family isn't going to react that way. If they do, then things are quite far gone with you and them. But that's a good place to start. Also, you can build a sense of meaning by embracing religion. Any religion. Just literally, believe in anything, please. Of course, I'm a Jew, so I'm going to say Orthodox Judaism is best, but just believe in any religion is just way, way better than believing in none. Pray to Hashem, pray to Jesus, pray to Allah, pray to the 9-armed monkey that lives on a mountain and eats papayas all day. I don't care. Believe in something, because if you believe in nothing, you have nothing. If you have no beliefs, you don't have anything at all. Usually, coming with having religion is embracing gender roles, because like every religion, name one religion. Name me one religion that doesn't have any gender roles. Any religion that's older than 10 days old and isn't communism, that doesn't have clearly defined gender roles, and also being a good person. And yes, that is something you can dedicate yourself to being, just becoming a better, more righteous human being, and doing good by your fellow man. And religion is seriously good motivator for that, because pretty much every single religion says, if you are a good person, you're going to be rewarded. That's what I believe. That's a big motivator for me, because I like rewards. I just like being given things. That's a big motivator for me to be a good person. I'm still a villain, but I'm as you know, because what kind of a great podcaster would I be if I wasn't maniacal? But I'm slightly less of a villain than I would otherwise be if I didn't have any reason to be slightly less of a villain. So I'll spend a little bit less of time burning down below. So and lastly, just help people with things. That also comes with religion. Help your parents, help your coach, help your teacher, move desks around. Just help people. You'll feel like a better person, trust me. You'll just feel better about yourself. I know I did earlier today when I helped Miss Glebus. But anyways, lastly, this is completely unrelated, but we have a 27 something. I'll leave you guessing what it is. Okay? Be patient. Wait for it. Be patient. God damn it, I said be patient. Don't rush me. Jeez. $27 trillion U.S. national debt. As in, the U.S. government is in the red, owes 27 trillion, not million, not billion, trillion dollars. That's $27,000, which is at the level where, like, you can't even imagine it in your mind in a way that you can really comprehend it. But that's a lot of money that we owe. And with the economy looking as it is, and the debt looking as it is, demographics and birth rates looking as they are. Side note, mentioning birth rates, having children is another thing that can give meaning, but I digress. If our country being $27 trillion in debt isn't a reason to start doomsday prepping, I don't know what is. But without further ado, have a great day, and suck it up, Buttercup.